They told Eleanor Quinn that she would lose everything: her home, her marriage, her dignity, her sense of belonging. They said the mistress had already won, because women like Eleanor were meant to stay quiet and accept whatever scraps were left. Once a richer, younger woman stepped in. But Eleanor had never been the kind of woman who begged for crumbs. She had spent years building her life with patience, loyalty, and a quiet resilience people often mistook for weakness. And though she didn't know it yet, the man who once took her for granted was about to learn the truth about who she really was and how much she was worth. Her husband, Alexander Quinn, was the kind of billionaire whose name opened doors and closed futures. He moved through the world with cold certainty, a man raised on the belief that anything could be replaced if it broke, including commitments, including people. Eleanor had watched that belief swallow him whole in recent months, as whispers of a woman named Selene Hayes crept into their marriage like slow poison. Selene was everything tabloids loved: glossy-haired, surgically perfect, a model who photographed well next to a man like Alexander. She knew how to look at him with admiration, polished into something expensive, and Alexander, blinded by his own ego, had fallen for the performance. "You'll lose everything to her," people murmured behind Eleanor's back. "She's already taken him. The assets will come next." Eleanor had stayed silent, not because she had nothing to say, but because she understood something no one else did. Alexander was destroying himself far faster than he was destroying her. And the day he finally realized what Selene truly wanted, the day he recognized the value of the loyalty he had thrown away, would be the day everything shifted back toward her. But for now, she let everyone assume she was the one who would end up empty-handed. The breaking point came on a cold Thursday evening. Alexander arrived home later than usual, smelling faintly of champagne and Selena's perfume. Eleanor didn't ask questions. She simply folded the blanket she had been using, placed it gently on the sofa, and walked toward the kitchen to finish preparing dinner. Alexander watched her with an expression she couldn't read, his face a mixture of hesitation and pride, as if he wanted to confess something, but couldn't quite decide whether she deserved the truth. "Eleanor," he said, loosening his tie, "we need to talk." She nodded once, not a word more. He paced in front of her like a man performing a speech for an audience he feared. "Selene, she thinks I should end things officially. She wants a commitment, a public one. And I think it's time." Eleanor sliced a carrot, each motion calm and rhythmic. "If that's what you want, Alexander, then say it plainly." He flinched at her tone. There was no anger, no desperation, only clarity. And for a moment, he looked almost afraid. "I want a divorce." The knife paused mid-air. Eleanor didn't look at him, not yet. She simply set the blade down, wiped her hands, and exhaled slowly. "Then you'll have one." Alexander blinked. No accusations, no begging, no bargaining. He wasn't expecting this version of Eleanor collected, unshaken, almost regal. Something unsettled him, but he didn't understand what. "You'll receive the papers tomorrow," she added softly. "And I hope whatever you're chasing is worth what you're losing." Her words weren't sharp, but they pierced him all the same. Alexander spent the night at Selena's penthouse, but even she noticed that something had shifted. He wasn't triumphant. He wasn't relieved. He was quiet, too quiet. And Selene, who thrived on being the center of dramatic attention, hated it. "You're still thinking about her," she snapped, as they sat in her living room, her voice shrill with insecurity. "You're acting like she's the victim here." Alexander rubbed his temples. "I never said she wasn't." Selene scoffed. "She failed you. She didn't fight for you." He looked at her sharply. Why should she need to? Selene immediately sensed her misstep. She leaned in, sweetening her tone. "Alex, darling, I didn't mean it like that. I just think she took you for granted." But Alexander wasn't hearing her. His mind was replaying Eleanor's calmness, the steadiness of her hands, the way she hadn't crumbled like Selene always claimed she would. And for the first time, he wondered if he had truly known his wife at all. The next morning, Eleanor arrived at the law office with her attorney and a face as serene as morning light. She didn't tremble. She didn't hesitate. And when Alexander saw her, something inside him twisted uncomfortably. She looked different, self-assured, polished, almost luminous. As if releasing him had lifted a weight he never realized he had forced her to carry. Selene sat beside Alexander, glaring at Eleanor with thinly veiled hostility. She had expected a defeated woman, someone fragile and easy to crush. But what she saw instead was a woman who radiated strength, the quiet kind that could shatter illusions without raising her voice. And that was when karma began its slow, deliberate turn. The moment the attorney presented Eleanor's inheritance, disclosures assets she had never flaunted, shares she had never used for leverage, companies her grandmother had left her that were worth more than Alexander's entire portfolio. Selene's jaw dropped. Alexander's pen slipped from his hand, and Eleanor, still calm, still graceful, simply said, "You told me I'd lose everything, but I was never the one at risk." For the first time, Alexander realized Selene hadn't chosen him. She had chosen his wealth, and she wasn't smiling anymore. Alexander felt his chest tighten as the reality sank in. Eleanor hadn't just walked into the room with dignity. She had walked in with power. A power she never used, never flaunted, never weaponized. A power Selene had never possessed, even when she believed she'd won. The attorney cleared his throat. "Mr. Quinn, do you wish to proceed with the division as proposed?" Selene gripped Alexander's arm. "Don't sign that. She can afford to give up more." Eleanor tilted her head slightly. "My terms are fair, and unlike some people, I have no intention of bleeding anyone dry." Her eyes flicked briefly toward Selene, who flushed with fury. Alexander's voice wavered. "Eleanor, you had all this, and you never—" "I didn't marry you for money," she replied softly. "But I suppose you can't imagine loving without gaining." Selene stiffened. Alexander swallowed hard. For years he had taken Eleanor's devotion for granted. Now looking at Selene, calculating, manipulative, already planning how to secure what she thought she deserved, he saw the cost of his choices with brutal clarity. When the meeting ended, Selene stormed out first, slamming the door behind her. Alexander remained seated, staring at the document he had just signed. His marriage was over, and the woman he'd betrayed had handled it with more grace than he deserved. Eleanor gathered her purse and stood. "Goodbye, Alexander." He rose too quickly. "Eleanor, wait." She paused. He looked lost, truly lost, for the first time since she had met him. "I made a mistake," he whispered. She smiled gently, not with affection but with understanding. "Yes, but some lessons can't be undone." She walked past him, her step steady, her presence radiant, and as she left the building, sunlight touched her face like a blessing finally earned. Selene, waiting outside with arms crossed, scoffed when she saw her. "You think you've won? He'll realize he needs me." Eleanor slipped her sunglasses on. "He already has." Selene frowned. "What does that mean?" Eleanor's smile was quiet, knowing unshakable. You only wanted a billionaire, but he finally understood the real value he lost. Inside the building, Alexander watched her through the glass doors. Not the wife he walked away from, but the woman he should have chosen all along. And karma, patient, unhurried, inevitable, settled the rest.